I'm from Texas. We have a home in LA and we have a home in Texas. Everything from COVID on down, when I'm in Texas, it's like there was never a pandemic
Yeah, I know. It's the best.
here. You come here and the
Yeah.
shopping centers are full, the
Yeah.
restaurants are full, everybody's going on about their life. And in California, everything is shut down. People are wearing
Hmm.
biohazard suits to the grocery store.
Oh, in LAX airport, I saw people in biohazard
Yes.
full gear, like hazmat suits
Yeah.
in customs. I was like, whoa. Maybe you
And
shouldn't leave the house if you're that worried.
I read a study recently. I'll actually put it on the website if people want to read it, where they looked at three factors and they were measuring what difference it made between states that went to total lockdown and states that did, like Florida, nothing. They were looking at mortality and how much disruption of the economy and education that state did. And they found no difference. If you totally blew up the economy and shut down your schools, the mortality rate was no different with states that didn't shut down the economy and didn't
Wow.
shut down the schools. So it had virtually no statistical impact whatsoever. And it was a pretty massive study, which I'll post and let people make up their own minds about it. But now they're starting to go back that direction again. And I'm really wondering if once you give the government certain authority and certain power, if they just have a hard time giving it back up.
I think you're right. I think that is the thing is once you give them the authority and the power, I mean, it's harder to give it up once you've got that.
And that's why you hear me tell people all the time on the show, they'll come on and say, well, we're going to court to have a custody battle. And I'm like, you don't want to do that. You want to go sit down and work this out between yourselves. Do not
Mm.
invite the government into your family. Do not do that. You don't, that's not King Solomon up there. You have no idea what he or she judge is going to do on a given day.
Oh, that's right, because you're dealing with people, and that judge could have had a bad fight with his wife that morning or her wife, whatever, and then they come in and that's it, right?
Yeah, maybe he's got a daughter whose husband really jerked her around in a marriage or over the weekend or something, and he's coming in there and he's going to get his pound of flesh, and you happen to be in the
Mm-hmm.
crosshairs. These are just people. They don't have some book of wisdom. You do not want the government in
No.
your life. You don't want to invite them into your family.
Bad idea. And this pandemic really made me realize that because I think I had a childlike notion of people in power. Like, oh no, surely they are trained. Surely they have what's best for us in mind. No, 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 of course. And it's like, no, they're just dopes like me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're just dopes like me, just trying to do right by them, by whatever forces are being pulled on them at any given time. There is no omnipotent, omniscient government that's going to take care of you.
Yeah, I'm trained in forensic psychology, and a good court, a good judge will get a forensic psychologist that will come in and evaluate this family for real and see what these parents are about for real. But trust me, we don't have an x ray machine looking for assholes. We don't have the ability to see because they put their best face on. You rely
Yeah.
so much on self report from these parents. Maybe the kids are straight with you, maybe they're not. We do as good a job as we can. There are no guarantees of how competent people are going to be when you get the government in your life. You don't want to do that. I'm just telling you.
Mm-mm. Man, and you've seen everything in your career. What's the craziest episode of Dr. Phil?
Oh man, what you just said, I've said to myself many times. I've walked off that set thinking, okay, I've seen it all now. And then I get up and come down there the next day and go, whoop, no, I haven't. I
Yeah.
thought I had until this bunch came out here. It's astounding to me how people can get out into life and get down in the trenches and find so many creative ways to get off in a ditch. It's astounding to me. And the ones that really stick with me, Christina, are the ones that victimize children that don't have a
No.
voice. There are so many
Oh,
kids that are 4 or 5 years old that if they had the words, if they had the ability, they would just say, will you people please just shut up? Will you just shut up, for God's sakes. When these kids live with domestic violence and yelling and screaming, we have now learned that it actually changes their brains. It isn't that they're just upset for a week or it leaves them kind of nervous in life. If you look at the brains of kids that grew up in that versus kids who didn't, you scan their brains and look at them, and they are significantly different.
What's the difference? Like the trauma, you mean?
Yeah, the
The
trauma
trauma brain?
changes the amygdala, the pleasure centers. It changes the neurotransmitters of the brain, the way the brain talks to different parts of the brain, how they process anxiety, impulse control, depression. It hijacks all of the areas that are involved with fight or flight reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So they get into a state of hyperarousal, and it changes who they are for the rest of their life if you don't do something significant to intervene. So it's terrible. And that's what upsets me the most with the stories that I deal with.
I bet. Because they're so helpless. Kids didn't ask to be born into certain families. Do you think we should have, you should have to get a license to have children?
Well, it seems to me we should require some sort of training. We have to go demonstrate competency to drive a car,
I know.
but to get a marriage license, you just pay $2 and they turn you loose in somebody else's life to go wreak havoc and then procreate.
I know.
Shouldn't you have to have some kind of parenting class or training? And when
At
you look at
least.
what happens in school, Christina, we teach kids how to add, subtract, read, write, maybe. And apparently we don't teach grammar anymore. I thought you got that in the 5th grade, but we teach them those things, but we don't teach them how to recognize anxiety, depression, stress, what to do about it. And then they get out there and get married and they don't have any of those skills to recognize or deal with that stuff. Why are we not teaching people this?
That is so true. Because I went to college and I did well in college, and I was like, I graduated and with honors, and I was ill-equipped for the world. I was thoroughly ill-equipped in the sense of people don't teach you that, like the emotional intelligence, right? How to recognize feelings, how to deal with them. And number 2, the most valuable lesson, which is why I've always loved you, is if you don't take charge of your life, life takes charge of you. And if you don't teach kids that, I feel like that was the most valuable lesson for me, is like, oh no, if you don't do this, actively live, you're just going to, whatever comes along, you're just going to take it. And that's dangerous. So I'm actually, when I'm talking to you right now, I'm trying to think of like, for people listening who have kids, like what can we teach our children? What's the most valuable thing to instill?
We look at kids sometimes and we go, oh, they don't listen. They roll their eyes. They don't listen. They may seem like they're not listening. They may roll their eyes, but trust me, if you hear not another word I ever say, they are always watching. They are always watching. You can be upset and maybe you just set your coffee cup down a little harder that morning. They notice that. If you're living your life without passion, you're just going through the motions and dragging along, they notice that. Parents that sell out and do a job they hate and they come home every day, oh my God, I hate that job. They're modeling for kids that you grow up, sell out, and do what you hate. They notice that, and you are the most powerful role model in their lives. We have to model for these kids that you need to be who you are on purpose. You need to star in your own life. And if you don't, who will? Who's going to star in your life if you don't? And that's what we need to teach these kids. Find out what your passion is and be who you are on purpose. Don't be a follower. Don't be a sheep. Don't get out there and react to what's happened. Be proactive, not reactive in your life. Be who you are on purpose.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Do you do that? Are you who you are on purpose? Because you sure seem like you are.
Look at this crazy set. Don't you think this is definitely who I am? But it took time. I wasn't born that way, and it took reading people like you, listening to people like you, failure, trial and error, crippling failure. And then you're just like, dude, what am I doing? If I don't take life by the horns, life's going to take me.